Hola, buen dia. My name is Tay, and this is my husband, Sergey.
Hi, I was born in Russia. I moved to America in 2001, and I spent almost 20 years living outside of Philadelphia, and that's where I met my wife. And just 2 years ago, we decided we were going to move to Panama, and just a month ago, we were able to do it.
Yes, and I am from a town outside of Philly in the States, and the reasons why we decided to move to beautiful Boquete, Panama, the weather, the cost of living. For produce, we eat a lot of produce because we're vegans, and we noticed the prices a lot better here. There's fresh air. We like that the lifestyle is a lot more relaxed compared to the fast pace in the States. And honestly, we definitely feel safer here.
Yeah, that's true. I think for me, we visited Peru about 5 years ago, and when we were there, we heard like Ecuador might be like a really cool place to live. Just 2 years ago, I was in Costa Rica, and that looked quite amazing to me. And I was having a conversation with some people just saying like, oh, I could see myself living there. And it just so happens one of those people was Jackie Lang. And she very quickly sold me on Panama. I was in Costa Rica by myself, but I ended up texting my wife that we're going to move to Panama. And you can tell people how you felt about that.
And I was like, okay, slow down. This is pretty soon. But within an hour, I looked at Jackie's website and I said, oh, I'm sold. Because for a few years now, we have wanted to move outside of the States to have a different kind of life.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite amazing because it's like you kind of have this thought where like, oh yeah, like one day I'll do this big thing, but I'm not sure how. But like one day, future me will figure it out. But then like Jackie's stuff is just like really spells it out for you. And I guess like that's probably like the thing that gave you a ton of confidence because, I was just like, yeah, like we'll figure it out somehow. But I think you were the first one to really look at her step-by-step kind of information.
Yes, Jackie has a lot of conference calls where you can call in, and she has a replay button on her website. So I listen to almost every single call to gather more information and to feel more comfortable about relocating because it's a big choice to make, important choice. I think it was the end of 2019 is when we booked a 7-day tour with Jackie, and that was supposed to be for May 2020. Of course, the pandemic happened, so we ended up buying her online guidebook.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even a thing when we first booked the live tour, right? And then I believe like in spring of 2020, the online guide was released. I mean, because we already booked the tour, Jackie sent us some information for us to start getting paperwork ready. We got in touch with our lawyer, Anita, who works out of David, and we started gathering everything together. So then by the time, it was kind of an interesting situation because you didn't know if we were going to make it to the tour. Like lockdown started happening in March. Yeah. And then at some point, the tour did get canceled, but right around that time, the online guide became available. And so I think our thought became that, okay, we were going to visit first and do the tour and then move a few months later. But, in the world, in the state that it is, we were just going to prepare everything. And then as soon as Panama was going to open, we were going to make the permanent move without actually having ever visited here.
Yes, which I would not recommend that for everyone. But we meditated, we listened to our intuition, and we just knew we wanted to be outside of the States. So we're happy that it worked out for us. But again, go on Jackie's tour to make sure it's the right fit for you, or take a private tour or a self-tour.
Yeah, but on the other side, the online guide made us feel super comfortable in the fact that we were very prepared. I mean, we've succeeded quite well in both moving here and moving our 4 animals. Yeah. And also having all our paperwork ready for our lawyer. In fact, just yesterday we were in David getting a picture taken at the Migracion building, and we were actually surprised we received these like temporary
visa cards right away, and it's for the Friendly Nation visa.
Yeah, so that's a very exciting thing for us.
Yeah.
I know you use the online guide a bunch more than me.
Okay, so I definitely was reading the online guide like every single day before our move. Sergey had to work full time, and help take care of me, which I'll get into later. But the online guide also offers a private Facebook group, which it's an already huge community of people who already did the move, people who are also doing the same thing as us. So you have a built-in community when you arrive here, and so many people are so nice and helpful. So are Panamanians. I think we're just like amazed at how nice people are, and just really appreciate that.
So we're feeling very accomplished because we're able to move to Panama with our 4 pets. We have 2 miniature pinschers. You might be able to see both of them. And then we also have 2 Bengal cats. And it was a huge project to move them all over here. And again, I have to thank the guide because it really spelled out the process for how it's done. One thing that helped us a ton is we got in touch with Jose in Panama City, who has a company called Golden Frog. And we stayed in touch with him throughout the multi-month process of us getting prepared for everything. But at the same time, the pandemic happened and it made everything even more complicated. So let me think about everything that was related to just moving the pets outside of the pandemic. So that was getting the vaccine set up. It was finding a vet that, for the United States is USDA approved. And that then I had to figure out the timing for when you get all the paperwork done before you actually make the move. And there's like this 10-day period before your flights where everything kind of happens. So, I mean, one suggestion I have is, if you're working, take some time off for those days because there was a lot of running around. Another thing that happened outside of just getting all the paperwork done correctly is a lot of uncertainty about will the airlines actually let us have all our pets with us. I mean, we had the experience of getting our flight canceled without being notified about it.
So that's a big thing. Yeah. We loved Copa, but they have a lot of less staff. So you just need to call almost daily to make sure that your flight is on the correct day and time. And also if you are traveling with your pets, that you have that reserved, allotted number of pets allowed to be on the plane.
Right, so we had 4. And the rules for Copa at the time of our travel was that you could have 3 pets under the plane in cargo. And then you could also have a pet per person in cabin, right?
Yes.
But here's another thing that happened to us is that we didn't know if cargo would be available in JFK because we flew out of New York. So we were considering all kinds of different things to bring our animals. I mean, one of them was like, do we rent a van or an RV and drive down to Miami,
Florida,
to do everything? I became like amigos with Domingo, who is like the head of Copa's cargo out of Miami. Yeah. And eventually it looked like cargo was likely, but then because we were moving and my wife Tay has a health issue, we were also considering like, should we hire a service to move at least maybe our cats? Just to make it easier on us. It's a lot of chaos to move, right?
But then we had trouble about our cats because our cats are Bengals and they're a special breed. We had to prove that they are domesticated and not wild. That was pretty crazy. We just, by the grace of God, had their pedigree and this other paper that we had. And we had to call all different, like the wildlife in the States to figure this out. The pet relocation that we were talking to didn't think that Bengals were allowed to come into Panama. We figured it out on our own. So it was just a lot of work, but it's totally worth it to have our fur babies here.
I mean, the funny thing is like the pet relocation service initially told us the Bengals might be a problem, but then they also said like, well, look, we could say they're like a spotted tabby and see how that plays. And for us, that was like completely unacceptable because we don't want to have our cats taken away from us, right?
Yeah, because that can happen.
In the end, though, we found out that Bengals don't need anything special. So although we had the pedigree and we spoke with Fish and Wildlife, and even some of them were confused, in the end, nothing special was required of them.
Yeah.
And they were able to go in cargo, and they made it to Panama. But I have to say, the process of getting our pets over here
Romy.
was just as difficult as everything else related to getting to Panama. It's like 50-50 for the work required. Once we arrived in the Panama City airport, we had one of our dogs with us, and the rest of our 3 animals were with Minsa. We were able to get in touch with Jose once our cell phone started working, and he told us that he's already over there getting everything started, and the 3 animals are there and they're safe and everything is good. And that was great to hear right away because, you know, it's a bit of a nerve-wracking thing to put your pets under a plane. So then we met up with Jose. He helped us get all the paperwork completed correctly. Process correct, really, I should say, because we were able to send Jose the paperwork ahead of time, and he, you know, gave it the seal of approval. Seals are very important in Panama. I think you'll learn that.
And stamps, yeah.
Stamps, of course, yeah. So, you know, once we got all our animals together, Jose got all our luggage and got us into his van. And the great thing about his van is that my wife has some limitations, so she was able to speak to Jose ahead of time and ask him, will there be a way for her to lay down? Will there be enough room? And Jose made videos for her showing off the van, kind of explaining what could be moved around. And that gave us additional peace of mind because, again, like, we just had a lot of things to juggle. Jose drove us to an Airbnb, and the following day we made the 7 to 8 hour trip to Boquete from Panama City. And how did that go for you?
It definitely went. There was some ups and downs for me, but I was so grateful to be able to lay down when I needed to in the van. And Jose was able to let us, you know, stretch our legs, get some food, take some breaks. And then I definitely liked that, you know, it was just, everything was really relaxing. And if you do come, I would suggest to come during the daytime so you can leave early morning so you can see all of Panama.
Yeah, and the reason we ended up driving instead of taking a plane from Panama City to David is because we had our 4 animals, and we just heard recommendations that it's best to just do a single flight and just not to stress them out too much. Yeah, and that drive went quite well. I mean, it's a fairly scenic route once you get out of the city, and I think it went quite well.
So for the private tours, there's 2 tour guides who are recommended by Jackie in the online guidebook. So we had Gerardo, and it was awesome because we wanted to get things done. We live in an unfurnished rental, and we needed a car. So Gerardo was really great at translating for us. He went at a really good pace for me, like when I needed extra downtime. He just was a true gentleman.
Yeah. We had a ton of stuff to do in that single day, and I mean, I didn't know.
David.
Yeah, we did go to David, and I didn't know how it was gonna go for you because, like, usually, like, at best you have like a couple of hours of energy before like you get much more tired. And so, you know, when you mentioned that Gerardo was really good with you, like that goes a long way, and like, we really appreciated that. But I'll talk a little bit about, you know, getting the car process because. You know, that was really important to us. We were just moving to our rental in a few days, so it was important for us to find a car. And I had actually been looking on Facebook Marketplace, and I found a van that I thought could work pretty well for us. And so what Gerardo offered is to meet the person I was speaking with at his mechanic friend's place. Gerardo has a ton of cars from the work that he does, and he says he takes all his cars to that mechanic. When I met the person with the van, the mechanic actually let me know that that car was in pretty good shape, except it was missing airbags. And that's not something the person who was looking to sell the car told me. And, you know, technically, you know, I could have negotiated down and had the airbags installed, as the mechanic explained to me, but we needed a car that day, and so, you know, we're passed on that car. And then Gerardo helped look for additional cars on Facebook Marketplace. He advised us about like what to get. You know, I was kind of getting like into like some other cars, and he explained that, like, look, like where you live and where you're gonna need to drive around, like you're probably really gonna want a 4-wheel drive and like this type of car. Yeah. So that was great because like I just wanted to like get something done, so I could have made like a wrong decision for myself. So I appreciate that level of advice.
Advice and honesty.
Yes.
Yeah.
So eventually he found the person. We met again at the mechanic that we used for the no airbags car. And the next big thing that Gerardo got done is just getting all the paperwork done in time for that day, right? Like we had to make sure that the seller had all the right paperwork, and then also go to a notary and just complete a bunch of like processes to sign the car over to me.
Yeah.
And he had a really good understanding of that process, and he really kind of like herded the sellers to make sure they show up on time and get it done.
Yes.
And in the end they did. And the last part of the process is Gerardo put me in touch with somebody in Panama City who was helping me transfer the title from the seller to myself. And that's helping me avoid having to make a trip to Panama City.
Sure. Another thing is we needed a bed. So we're pretty excited because it's the first time we had a king-size mattress ever. So all 4 animals, everyone's like loving it. Everyone has their own little nook. So we were asking about furniture, and we know that there's higher humidity here than what we're used to back in the States. So I wanted to make sure we had teak wood, because I learned that that lasts long here. Gerardo let us know different price points and different kind of quality. So I'm really happy that we got to, go to a furniture place that he picked out for us, and he kind of gave it like the seal of approval, which made me feel good.
Yeah, and we love the bed.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. So the advice we might have for anybody considering moving to Panama is just to definitely use Jackie's services, whether it's the online guide or an in-person tour. I mean, it really made this possible for us, and we had a lot of different like complicating factors in going into this whole process. So we just can't say enough good things about it. And then the other thing for us is, we've really been working on learning Spanish as we got here, because we love meeting the locals, and they've been so great and friendly to us, and we just can't wait to be able to interact with them even more and really become a part of this culture.
And to go off of that, if you just know a little bit of Spanish, even if it's not grammatically correct, it goes such a long way, and you can tell that people appreciate that you're trying. So try not to get nervous when you're trying to speak a new language, but definitely learning Spanish is our top tip, I think. It's not a must, but if you want to be part of the community more, you'll have a totally different experience in Panama than just living with expats.